A very good evening to everyone. I'm really thankful to Sheikh Sir for making a wonderful presentation and also elaborating on the various challenges which we as a cooperative bankers are facing and going to face in days to come. I've always believed that unless we meet and we deliberate on the common issues, we cannot actually reach out to the solutions. One such thing which Sheikh Sir and other speakers also pointed out, that in the business of lending, there is something which is inevitable. And the fact which is inevitable is the fact that accounts and our choices and our decisions would go wrong. We cannot do away with the NPAs. And trust me, for the last 3 years, probably NPAs or rising NPAs are one of the most painful areas which the bankers are facing. When I started working in Bombay some 20 years back, I remember there was one big hoarding on Gadkari Chowk कि महाराष्ट्रात काम करायचं तर मराठीत बोलता यायला पाहिजे. I will try my best to speak in Marathi whenever it is so required. I would quickly take you through the experiences that we had while handling the NPA accounts with various cooperative banks. Friends, we are sitting in the month of February, and very soon there will be one more financial year ending which we'll have to face. Trust me, last 3 years have been really challenging, and this uncertainty is still going to continue for one or the other reason. The facts are not, I cannot comment on the fact that every year whenever there is an election in the country, if you see in last 50 or 70 years of Indian history, you will find that NPAs बैंक का particularly in 20 last years के elections में तो definitely थोड़ा सा तो effect आया ही है. I don't know what is the correlation there, but the next year is also going to be really challenging, which is I believe. So, as you all know, all the cooperative banks are facing this common problem of NPAs. NPAs are rising. When we try to sell the assets, we don't find the buyers. There's a lot of hostility. These days, our borrowers are also getting smarter. आधी 10 वर्ष आधी बॉरोवर जास्त वकिलांकडे जात नव्हता, डायरेक्टली बँकेकडे यायचा आणि OTS करायचा प्रयत्न करायचा. बट नाव यू कॅन सी दॅट इवन बॉरोवर्स आर क्वाईट कनेक्टेड टू गुड ॲडव्होकेट्स, गुड लॉयर्स, अँड दिस हॅज ॲक्च्युअली गिवन दॅम a strength to resist the matters. Then economic slowdown is also there. If you see the properties which could be sold off at 100 rupees, in the last 2-3 years, what we have observed that at the time of auction, it doesn't fetch that kind of value. And this ultimately affects the financial parameters of the banks. If you see, the health of a bank invariably somewhere is getting affected with the gross level of gross NPA percentages. You want to go and apply for a bank for a license for internet banking facility, you will have to answer what is the level of gross NPAs in the bank. You want to apply for a mobile banking facility, the questioner says what is the gross level of the NPAs in the bank. So practically every problem is some or the other way narrowed down to the level of gross NPAs in the bank. And what I'm going to discuss ahead is one such way which can actually help the banks in reducing the gross NPAs within a very short span of time. When I say reducing NPAs, it definitely, there are many people who would say कि recoveries करके हो जाएगा, but I have not seen recoveries happening within 30-40 days, and recoveries to this extent that the gross NPAs can be brought down. Recovery takes its own time, and therefore, if you see, RBI has also provided a wonderful mechanism. There was one circular in the last year which actually allowed all the cooperative banks to explore the possibility of assigning their NPAs. And when I say assigning the NPAs, it means selling it off to asset recognition companies, or for that matter even QIBs, which are recently introduced in the whole ecosystem. So to sell, whenever there is when the NPAs actually are to a level like 20%, 15% plus, and it's getting difficult for the bankers to immediately bring the NPAs down, we always suggest the bankers to explore this possibility, whereby you can bring down your gross NPA levels. And how does it help? It helps the bank to survive. I've always I've always told that Sar Salamat to Pagdi Hazar. If the bank can survive, then they can grow. I mean, if the bank can survive, then only it can grow. If the gross NPAs will keep mounting, probably there will be a time when RBI or other regulatory bodies will take stringent actions, and then the whole business will be put to halt. And therefore, this concept of asset recognition company came into picture some 20 years back. This asset recognition companies are nothing but the companies which are registered with RBI with a very specific objective to reconstruct and resolve. So the basic idea initially was that this asset recognition companies would act as bad banks, which will help the bad accounts to survive, to rehabilitate. And if they find that nothing can be done, then of course to sell off their assets and get the recoveries for the bankers. These ARCs are all regulated by RBI, very strictly regulated. There was a time when there was a lot of ambiguity in the whole process, but in the recent years, RBI has ensured that all these asset recovery companies actually perform in accordance with the laid down regulations and guidelines. And all these ARCs actually gain their strength from the sponsors, people who support them, who fund them. And this is how they actually create a capital with which they can buy your NPAs, bring your NPA levels down. If you see, currently there are more than 25-30 ARCs practically active in the state of in India, out of which all these marked names are basically having activity in the state of Maharashtra. Of course, they purchase assets out of Maharashtra also or out of Gujarat also, but they are very active in cooperative banking segment. So if you see companies like Phoenix, Omkara, Phoenix is backed by Kotak. So they have brought, the biggest deal of cooperative sector, 700 crores from one of the banks based in Pune. Then there are companies like Asteric, Reliance, Pegasus. These are all very active in cooperative banking space. As an advisor, we have constantly been working on the seller side and advising them to explore the possibility of selling their NPAs to any one of them. Because these are all our ARCs which are licensed by RBI, and they are very actively in this business of buying assets and making recoveries for you. Having said this, sir, there are some ARCs which are actually very active in the smaller segment. If you see, in our cooperative banking, typically the loan sizes may vary from 25 lakh to 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore. There are cases where you also lend 10 crores, 20 crores. But typically in this size, there are many ARCs which are very active, and they are doing wonders with the recoveries these days. At the same time, there is a new concept which I just spun in the market. This is alternate investment fund. Now this alternate investment funds are nothing but again companies which are incorporated under the Companies Act, and they are being monitored by SEBI. These are kind of funds which, people with good resources, they join hands, put their money together, और फिर उस पैसे का यूज़ करते हैं assets को purchase करने के लिए. With the help of this AIFs, we have seen many good solutions being delivered to cooperative banks. जैसे कि मैंने पहले बताया, if you can see this slide, ये सिर्फ 20-25 ARCs हैं, लेकिन NPA का मार्केट तो बहुत बड़ा है. हज़ारों करोड़ों के NPAs खरीदने की कैपेसिटी तो इनमें किसी में भी नहीं है. तो फिर रिजोल्यूशंस कैसे मिलेंगे और सॉल्यूशंस कैसे आएंगे? इसीलिए RBI brought few good changes recently. So what they did, they have acknowledged the fact that we desperately need an ecosystem for resolution of stress asset. And when I say ecosystem, it means that we need those agencies which are very much required for the resolution of stress assets. And initially when it was all restricted for ARCs, now they have enhanced the spectrum and also included QIBs, NBFCs, other banks, and also HNIs to buy your NP assets. So now cooperative banks are also with larger options to get the deals done, to actually sell off their assets. These options were not available 2 years back. RBI has also allowed all the cooperative banks to explore this possibility under the structured deals. Of course, there have been few changes which have actually gone against this whole concept of assignment. There is a concept of provision of SRs that would continue, which has made these deals a little less lucrative apparently. I will come back to it. And then they have also introduced concepts like payment of management fee and recovery incentive only from the recoveries, which means that whenever there will be recoveries from your assets, then only there will be a cost incurred to you. Recovery करेंगे, वहाँ से पैसा generate करेंगे वो, and उसमें से recovery करने के बाद ही आप लोगों को पैसा वापस करेंगे. So with this kind of concepts in place and this kind of agencies like alternate investment funds and ARCs in place, now the bankers can really think of bringing down their gross NPAs within a very short span of time. I can just tell you, I mean, there are many banks which have done deals in the past. We have personally advised more than 15 banks and assigned more than 1,500 crore worth of NPA accounts for different cooperative banks in the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat. And when you look back, many of the bankers felt कि यार ये करने की ज़रूरत क्या थी, नहीं करते तो better रहता. But we always forget a very important point, that they did the deal, they were doing the deal and they did these deals when it was really important for them and it was a matter of a question of survival for them. जैसा कि मैंने पहले भी कहा, यदि हम सर्वाइव करेंगे तो हम ग्रो कर पाएंगे. तो ये जो ARC की डील्स थी, इन सभी डील्स ने उन सभी बैंक्स को एक ब्रीदिंग स्पेस दिया, and in the period of next 2 to 3 years, these banks were back on their feet. And therefore, assignment is an option which I as an advisor always suggest to the bank, that you should at least explore once whenever you feel that the gross NPAs are going out of control. With AIF and ARCs in place, we have a larger capital base now. 50 crore, 100 crore, 200 crore, 500 crore, कितने भी करोड़ के NPAs हो, AIFs, ARCs के साथ, they join hands and they make sure that the deals are taking place. They have the kind of expertise which no other institution has. They are hardcore recovery expertise agencies. जब आप auction करते हैं as a banker, probably you don't get a buyer. Sometimes you don't get a buyer. Because as a banker, we are not after scouting buyers. But ARCs are into this job. जब उनका auction आएगा तो definitely buyer आता है. Because they have an investor network to back them. And once this investor network is in place, तो definitely results मिलेंगे. Similarly, अगर आप देखें तो ये एजेंसीज जो थी, उनका आज से 2 साल पहले का व्यवहार was not that regulated by RBI, but with the recent circulars, now it is a very regulated trade. आपने कई बार सुना होगा कि ARC को देने के बाद माल प्रैक्टिसेस वगैरह होता है. अब जो रेगुलेशंस है सर, ये सारे रेगुलेशंस ऐसे हैं कि बैंक का इंटरेस्ट कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ कर पाना किसी ARC के लिए इतना आसान नहीं है. इनफैक्ट अब इन सभी ARCs के इतना बड़ा स्टेक इन्वॉल्व है पूरी प्रोसेस में, ऑलमोस्ट 2-4 हज़ार करोड़ रुपए का स्टेक, कि अब वो थोड़ी सी भी गलती करेंगे तो RBI विल टेक स्ट्रिक्ट एक्शन अगेंस्ट देम, एंड देयरफॉर इट इज़ वेरी मच रेगुलेटेड दिस डेज. At the same time, there is a lot of customization which is possible in this kind of deals. If the bankers want कि उनको इस बार management fee कम देना है तो कम दी जा सकती है, अगले साल से देना है, incentives नहीं देने 2 साल, any kind of deals can take place now. The objective is कि आपके gross NPAs immediately कम हो. Even 31st March, आज हम बैठे 27 फरवरी को, यदि किसी बैंक को ऐसा लगता है कि ये possibility explore करना चाहिए तो it is possible, because we have a proper ecosystem in place now, जो पहले नहीं था. And therefore, when discussing ki what matter we should be discussing today, we immediately thought of addressing this one issue, which is actually a pain area for many of the bankers. Having said this, sir, I know time nikal raha hai kafi, I will quickly wrap it up. But if any of the bankers want to explore the possibility of reducing their NPA within a short span of time by making an assignment, we are there, we can deliver this service to you. At the same time, for the bankers who have already done these deals, and if they feel that their SRs are not getting redeemed, we take pride in telling them that we are one of the very few advisors who have been able to get cash deals for security receipts also. Because there is a secondary market which is actually developing for the security receipts. So जिन बैंकों ने नहीं ट्राई किया है सर, I would suggest definitely try it out. एंड जिन बैंकों ने ये ऑलरेडी एक्सपीरियंस लिया हुआ है, यदि वो अपने एहसास को रिडीम करना चाहें तो डेफिनेटली हम उन्हें भी कुछ सर्विसेज दे सकते हैं. Having said this, sir, I would like to thank you all of you once again. Thank you so much, and we look forward to any opportunity in this sector. Thank you.